You're listening to The Briefing, first broadcast on the 16th of July, 2026 on Monocle Radio. Hello and welcome to The Briefing, broadcasting live from Studio One here at Midori House in London. I'm Chris Chermak. Coming up on today's program, the world's attitudes to China and the United States are shifting. That's according to a new survey. We'll delve into the whys and the realities with Monocle's James Chambers in Bangkok. After that, we look at what cities can do to keep themselves naturally cool in the heat. And then
I always like quite a camp dining room, and I think that is a little bit in there, like with the white tablecloths, with the disco ball up there.
We'll hear why two restaurateurs went from high-end offerings to the comfort food and place of British pubs. And finally, the global countdown this week features our very own World Cup finalists. Fernando Augusto Pacheco move over Sunday. This is the day we've all been waiting for.
And who is going to win, Chris? Is it South Korea, Turkey, Côte d'Ivoire, Cape Verde, Argentina, or Colombia? Tune in to find out.
So many countries in a final. All that right here on The Briefing with me, Chris Chermak. And a very happy Thursday to all of our listeners around the world. U.S. President Donald Trump is fond of saying that his country is respected like never before since he was re-elected president. But a new survey comparing attitudes towards China and the United States would suggest there's been a rather clear shift in the opposite direction. The PEW Research Center in Washington found that China is now viewed more positively than the United States in most of the 36 countries surveyed, with some of the clearest shifts among erstwhile allies in Europe. Well, joining me now from Bangkok is our Asia editor, James Chambers, who's been crunching the numbers of the survey. James, sitting in Thailand where the specter of Beijing is larger, I'm curious if this survey and its results surprise you.
It's funny you say that, Chris, because actually being closer to China here in Thailand kind of feels like people are actually maybe understand the country a bit more. They visit a bit more. They know more Chinese people, more Chinese visit here. So maybe they're a little less swayed by those kind of scary headlines that we've been seeing in the Western media over the last 20 years. So maybe there's just a bit more awareness here of the kind of benefits and the risks. But I would say it obviously differs where you're sitting. I'm sure our colleague Fiona sitting in Tokyo in Japan would have, have a very different opinion. But here in Thailand, they certainly don't see China as a threat.
Well, that is what I wanted to ask you about, James. It's interesting you say that because, yes, of course, in your region, people will understand China perhaps more than they do here. But in this survey, what I found interesting was actually that a lot of those countries near China do see it as more of the threat. It's Europe that has turned against Trump and the United States, but South Korea, India, Japan, the Philippines, they all still see China more negatively. Is that because of the risks as much as even if they understand China the way you're describing?
Yeah, that's right. As you mentioned, there was about 37 countries included in this research across the world. The Pew Center spoke to about 40,000 people. And only 6 countries had a more favorable view of the US than they did China. And it's the ones you just went through there, and they all happen to have, disagreements with China at the moment. The Philippines and China have their big issues in the South China Sea. Japan and China have a long history, and then you have places like India and China and South Korea. So it's no surprise that those countries are strong U.S. allies for Philippines, South Korea, and Japan have more favorable views of China. The one that I was curious by was Poland. Poland still seems to fly the flag for America at the same time, as you said. Most of Europe is now seeing China more favorably. So it's not accurate necessarily to say that countries in Asia close to China, have a less favorable view. I would actually say that most see China more favorably. And you can understand the reasons why. I mean, a lot of the Muslim majority countries here, like Pakistan, like Indonesia, like Malaysia, I mean, the difference in how they view China and how they view the US can be quite staggering. But when you look at why, I mean, the war in Gaza was a huge thing for those countries. And obviously that's done huge amounts of damage to the US.
I think it's interesting that too, the way you describe it, James, the fact that clearly this shift has come from some things that the US has done, whether that is Gaza or other actions, Iran for that matter as well. It's less about China itself. But I mean, I'm curious, even when you mention some of those Muslim countries, I mean, China has a big Uyghur population, which it has not dealt with terribly well. So, I mean, do you get the sense that, I don't know, might this shift back again if China acts on some of its own either territorial ambitions or just sort of its treatment of other countries and its own populations as a still authoritarian government?
Yeah, that's definitely a question for those countries to answer, because when the whole the Uyghur human rights issue was really at its peak, they certainly weren't as vocal as they have been now in defense of Palestine. But I mean, if you look back at that time, maybe the US was always doing very well in highlighting, I guess, a lot of the things the bad things that China was doing. It was definitely winning the information war, and the problem, or I guess the change that's happened now is that I guess the US is less able to go around the world lecturing authoritarian countries on their human rights record because the veil has been lifted a bit on what the Americans are up to. And as you mentioned, I mean, the Iran war, snatching the Venezuelan leader, trying to, suggest that they're going to take Greenland. I mean, these have all been huge changes in American foreign policy. And I guess, they've made global news. And people around the world are, I guess, a bit more clear-eyed about what Washington is up to. You mentioned Donald Trump using the word respect. I guess the word you'd probably use more now is fear. I mean, this year alone, the US has been responsible for a lot of chaos around the world. And this survey was done in February to May this year. And America is just responsible for a laundry list of chaos.
Well, that's one place to leave this. Monocle's Asia editor, James Chambers, thank you very much for joining us today. And now here's Tom Webb with the day's other news headlines.
Thanks, Chris. A protest in support of Ukraine's defense minister is taking place near the president's office in Kyiv and a number of Ukrainian cities. His removal from office risks throwing uncertainty into the army at a time when Ukraine is in one of its best positions in the war for months, having halted the pace of the Russian advance with long-range drones. Taiwan's President William Lai has expressed solidarity with independent bookstore owners. He urged the Hong Kong government to respect the diverse views after authorities raided 2 bookstores and arrested 5 people a day earlier. Hong Kong authorities searched Greenfield Bookstore and Have a Nice Stay, both in Mong Kok. Seoul has extended nighttime hours at 4 Han River public pools until 2200. Amid the ongoing heatwave, operating hours have grown from the previous 1800 closing time. A total of 150,000 people have reportedly visited the Han River's pools and water parks in the 26 days since their June 19th opening. Those are the day's headlines. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks very much, Tom. Now, here in Europe, much of the continent has been racing to shore up its urban infrastructure in the face of sweltering temperatures this summer. And one research project has been looking at how to bring nature itself into the equation by focusing more on the impact of things like tree cover and parks on our mental health and well-being. Well, with me now is the designer behind the project, Michael Smythe, along with Joe Gibbons, landscape architect and founding partner of the London-based practice J&L Gibbons. Good to have you both here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us.
Joe, let me perhaps start with you. You've focused, I understand, in this research project on London, but this is a broader challenge for lots of cities.
Yeah, we really want to inspire all the cities, and there's good city networks like C40, which exchange information, ways of really enhancing the quality of life in cities. And cities are growing faster than any other habitat. So it really is important for all of us globally. London is a good place to start, and we're seeing a big change happening very quickly.
It is a good place to start. And Michael, perhaps you could describe exactly what this research project has done. I understand you basically mapped out the temperature across London's neighbourhoods. What did you find?
Yeah, so it's worth mentioning this is part of the Wellcome Trust Climate and Health Scheme. And it has many different partners from King's College London, which are the leaders on this, School of Hygiene, Tropical Medicine, and Stanford University. J&L Gibbons and myself are kind of the industry partners, I guess you'll say, where we're sort of ground truthing a lot of the research that's coming out. And one of the aspects of the research is looking at medical records from London over the last, decade, and looking at how heat is influencing mental health, with hospital admissions on the increase 6%, which is quite large, really, when you think about our cultural readiness for this rapid change. So the work we're doing within the project is taking the data that the universities are kind of exploring, and then working out ways to practically apply them in everyday life. For me personally, it is very much about building a new culture around this, particularly in London, in the UK. We are experiencing heat waves. We associate them with lovely things like beaches and rivers, but actually the reality of the impacts on human health and ecological health are really kind of still quite unknown because it's so rapid. So our work is exploring that.
Well, and what I understand of this, Joe, that's interesting is you see when you map out these disparities, health and well-being, so the impact, there are disparities within London itself, which kind of get to this idea that even within a city, it matters. I mean, London has a lot of parks, I think it's fair to say, compared to maybe other cities even around the world, but just describe those disparities. How much?
Well, it's equity, it's social equity, actually, and it isn't equal. So if we're talking about the impacts of climate change, it affects people differently. And those in the less favoured neighbourhoods that need to be addressed. It needs to be addressed, this issue, across all the neighbourhoods in London. And that's what we're seeking to try and drive is through this project, is not only spotlighting mental health, as opposed to just physical health, because mental health is really not in the policy kind of area as much as mental health, as physical health, but also to look at how we can make it more even in terms of an opportunity and bigger impact on the ground. So when Michael talks about we're ground truthing, we don't want this to sit high-level policy document. We actually haven't got time for that. We need to drive actual change on the ground. So that's where the Bethnal Green Nature Reserve, which is the kind of research unit, if you like, that Michael's created, and our work in terms of being the, if you like, the industry partner in terms of the built environment, can have real impact by showing how you can change those lived-in experiences. And that can be almost like rapid prototyping. You know, if you put your head in a kind of car designer mode, you don't wait until the end of your design process to put the car through the wind tunnel. You are doing it all the time, and you are rapidly taking on that information to tweak and optimize the solutions. That's what we're interested in doing, and bringing the community with us and showing that there is potential for massive transformational change in our cities through retrofit.
And Michael, give us some examples of that prototyping, to use that word from Joe. What exactly are we talking about here within neighborhoods? We're not talking about AC, I think, which has been so much the topic of conversation in Europe. We're talking about more natural things.
Yeah, I think the main thing is being multilingual and intersectional, really, in every approach. And that's reflected in our research team. So on one level, we've got advisors with policy backgrounds, kind of advocating within the Greater London Authority, for instance, with their recent heat plan to actually think about adding mental health into the conversation, and also thinking about sort of making sure that there are accessible templates for everyone to kind of adapt their day-to-day, particularly in moments like we're having this year. In terms of rapid prototyping, I guess looking at it as an industry level, Jo and her team have designed a really great website, a toolkit essentially for both policy advisors, planners, but also neighborhoods to advocate and rapidly change their neighborhoods based on their individual nuances. And I think that's really important. One size doesn't fit all. And one thing that we do need, and something we're doing at the Bethnal Green Nature Reserve, is going, well, who are the communities and how would they approach this? And then prototyping those ideas for that specific neighborhood. And it could be anything from neighbors checking in with each other during heat waves to make sure that their health is okay. Mental health, isolation, etc., kind of all increased during heat waves. But it's also looking at the street level, like the streets around London where I am are baking hot because a lot of the trees were planted with good intention, but they don't have stewardship cultures around them, so they're dying.
Yeah, and I think that's there's two big opportunities. One is to wrap in nature into our thinking. Nature is suffering and we are all connected. So we need to create livable cities for all life. Secondly, in terms of what can we do, I mean, the urban forest is a massive potential and urban forestry is about people. And if you take the fact that 80% of our nation, UK, live in cities, and in London, 80% of the public realm is roads and streets. 80% of that 80% are local streets. Then let's target those local streets because that affects the walk to school, the walk to work, the everyday. And we can look at those highways in particular with TfL sort of saying healthy environments is directly connected to healthy communities, that we can look at those highways and repurpose them for tree planting. And that's the critical thing. We need more trees. They are, before us, they are working so incredibly hard on many, many multifunctional levels, but we need to really increase the tree canopy cover.
And we also, and the thing I like about your platform is it's showing people how to actually do that within streets that don't have that provision.
Yeah.
And one thing we do need to look at streets and neighborhoods that don't have green spaces and retrofit these cities and do them in interesting ways that you can get buy-in, e.g. larger tree pits where you can grow food, you can have a biodiverse ecosystem, not just a tree. So you get buy-in on multiple levels.
Very interesting stuff. I'm afraid we are going to have to leave it there. But designer Michael Smythe and landscape architect Jo Gibbons, thank you very much for joining us, to both of you. This is The Briefing on Monocle Radio. This is The Briefing, and now, from running one of East London's most talked about restaurants to taking on the Great British Institution. Chef Matthew Scott and wine merchant Charlie Carr have swapped Pappy for Golden Tooth, which is a pub. Monocle's Tom Webb caught up with the pair to find out why they made the move, what they're bringing to the neighbourhood, and whether the modern public house is having a moment.
For me, it kind of feels a little bit like returning home. It's kind of where it all started. There's a lot more of kind of an emotional responsibility that comes with a pub, especially when you're opening a pub rather than a restaurant. You kind of have to go into it with this soft tenderness. You're very aware that that building has pre-existed long before you. There are lots of people who have had many, many experiences, created memories. People have pushed up tables and had sandwiches and wakes and weddings and parties. And that there's a local trade that's already quite defined. And it's about how you kind of come into it and what you do with it in terms of how well you're going to get on in that space. So it's a bigger beast. It's a lot more public and accessible for me over a restaurant. And it allows us to kind of create a bit of a bridge between all rather than one particular niche kind of client base, which is quite exciting. And it means that we kind of have to take on that responsibility of making sure that we're creating points of accessibility for everybody and that it kind of harks back to the point that food is for the people.
You have the responsibility of the building and the heritage, but also to the people that expect a pub. How do you get that balance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of different for me, Matthew, because I suppose, I actually, because of what I like to drink, which is wine and stuff like that, I actually don't spend tons of time in the pub because I'm always like, I wish that pubs had a nice wine list, and I wish that there was, more cider and like low intervention cider in pubs and that kind of thing. So I think it was exciting for me to come to from that perspective and do the drink side of a pub that, you've got, like you say, there's so much history and so much individuality to each pub. Wouldn't it be nice if that was reflected in how the drinks was done in a dining room that had white tablecloths? Still having Guinness on, still having approachable stuff, and still having prices that are approachable. So our house lager is £5.90 a pint, which is pretty good in London, I'd say. But also having that thing where you can get a £7 glass of wine, of low intervention wine, but you can also look at a wine list that has 150 references on it that focuses on English low intervention wine. Anything that you do, especially when the pub has such broad appeal, you want someone to walk in and feel comfortable and feel excited to be there and, and think, I want to bring my friends here. And I think that's what we wanted to do. That's why it's nice that the pub is the first thing you walk into. You feel this sort of drinking hall atmosphere. The music is nice and loud. There's everyone there. There's families there. There's big groups of friends drinking. There's old guys sat at the bar. And I think that's a really nice...
And dogs.
And dogs. There's dogs
and
racing around.
Once a cat.
Yeah, and a cat recently, a very brave cat. I actually found, coming from a restaurant background, wine bar background, what I find really exciting when I'm looking out. It's exciting when the restaurant is really busy, but that I look at with a kind of more professional eye. But I really like it when I see the pub heaving, late on a Friday night. It's something that is new, a new feeling to me of feeling like this is a nice community that everyone's come here for.
How do you balance those spaces as you come into the pub? How do you cater for both of those audiences?
I think there has to be a natural flow to things. You have to book for the restaurant. It's white tablecloths, it's sit down. The music is a little bit quiet in there, so the speakers turn down a little bit. But you shouldn't forget that they are connected. And I think that's an important thing, that it's not a, silent, prissy white tablecloth restaurant. It's that in a pub. And I think having this element that once you finish your dinner, you can go and just grab drinks there, or before you can hang out in the pub. So I think having a service style that reflects this, that's very, very friendly, that's engaging, but doesn't stand on ceremony and does ask people how their day is going and what they're up to afterwards. I think that's the service style is really important there.
Well, you mentioned pubs being very individual, which they are. You could have chosen from many, many different establishments. What spoke to you about this one when you first stepped in?
Love the fact that the area is still a bit nitty gritty. It's still very real. It's still very much kind of up and coming. And there's a lot of exciting things happening around us all the time. And I think even with Pappy before, it was nice to kind of be a part of that change and to push forward in doing so. The pub, when you look at it from the outside, is incredibly striking with its kind of mock Tudor appearance. Obviously, the fact that we've sort of developed a bit more of a quieter, elegant space in the back, but ultimately there's no flimsiness to it. It all sits in the safe hands of a pub, essentially. It's a castle. It's something that's built to last. It's not something that, you put down on the ground, and by the time you turn around, it's already been taken away by the sea, and the oceans have changed, shall we say. Everything moves very, very quickly.
Charlie, we've spoken about the atmosphere that you're looking to create and the feeling that you get from your customers. Is that feeling one of sharing? There's lots of sharing dishes. Is it very relaxed? What's the hope?
Yeah, I always like quite a camp dining room, and I think that is a little bit in there, with the white tablecloths, with the disco ball up there.
Do you bring any other camp to that?
I bring whatever people want me to bring, basically. I'm a chameleon.
I think we all bring a campus to everything we touch and do.
But yeah, I think, there'll be a plan to have cheese trolley in there someday with a little eau de vivre station, something
Super
like that.
camp.
That's very camp.
It really is, exactly. And that's sort of old school 70s stuff I like. And I think that also it's a nice thing to walk into, whoever you are. You know, obviously we get groups of like 4 men, and I think you see over time people relax into that and really enjoy that atmosphere. And while they might start with 4 pints of Guinness, by the end they're having, you know, 2 of them are having Palomas and the other 2 are having margaritas, and one of them wants it a little bit more spicy.
There's a pub joke in there somewhere.
There is, yeah. I'm desperately trying to think of it.
Like, I think it's nice what Pappy, when it was such a small space, the atmosphere is quite rigid. You know, when the music's loud, someone who's maybe a bit older comes in, they don't really feel that comfortable in here. Whereas here, you know, we've had the same couple come back 3 weeks in a row who have lunch and they sit there for 3.5 hours and they're probably in their late 60s, early 70s. And it's really nice to see people do that. And then they were talking about last week rolling into dinner. And I think it's nice that you can have that as well as young people and, you know, people from Newington Green. And there's also a space for families. There's also a space for older people. Adds a kind of glamour to it that I think I always want in dining rooms. I want them to be quite glamorous.
The chef Matthew Scott and wine merchant Charlie Carr speaking with Monocle's Tom Webb. Thank you very much to all. You're listening to The Briefing on Monocle Radio. Well, last but absolutely not least on today's show, for the past month as the World Cup has rolled on, regular listeners will know that we've been running our own musical version of the tournament here on the Global Countdown. Monocle's senior correspondent Fernando Augusto Pacheco is here, and Fernando, you have been going week by week through the World Cup groups, picking the best number 1 songs from each country, and today we have reached the final.
It is the final, and we have 6 countries in this final. And you know what, Chris? I've been listening to all of those tracks. I'm very proud of those 6 countries. I think I've done the right choice. It's a nice mix musically. We have different music styles, different vibes, if I may say. So, yeah, very proud of all those countries. So even if they don't win, they should appreciate, you know, because it's in 48 countries, you know.
It's not the participation in the final that matters.
Exactly.
We should clarify here, just for those sort of nitpicky listeners, if I may, that you did World Cup group stages over the last few weeks. You picked the number 1 song, but it could have changed, I understand now, because you have updated. So you're looking at the current number 1 from these 6 finalists. It may be the same, it may be different.
Thank you for explaining. Some of them are the same. And in fact, we will start with South Korea, which is an impressive music market. We all like a little bit of K-pop. And then their number 1 song is the same one from a few weeks ago. It's a very good track. I think it's K-pop reinventing itself. Some touches of electro clash in there as well. From South Korea, this is Cortez with Red Red.
It's got a World Cup anthem-y style to it as well, definitely.
Quite industrial in a way, and I think they want to be a little bit different. That's why the name Cortez, apparently, it means kind of color outside the lines. So they don't want to be just kind of in a box, if I may add.
Not with the rest of K-pop. They want their own K-pop box.
It's working.
All right. So we are off and running in our final. That was South Korea, the first entrant. Who do we have next?
We have Turkey. And although we have the same band, it's a different song. So they released a new single meanwhile. But that just shows how powerful they are. So a few weeks ago, they were number 1 together with Ayda Pekan, you know, the 8-year-old pop diva from Turkey. But this time, they're by themselves with a brand new single. It's the girl group Manifest with Toz Pembe, which means baby pink. That's been such a
You
lovely
need to
discovery.
translate that rap for me, Fernando. What are they
Baby
talking
Pink,
about?
Baby Pink. They're talking about. I mean, the video it's like a neon explosion. You know, there's Baby Pink, there's Baby Blue, there's Baby Everything. I think it's a very fun girl group from Turkey, and I have to add, they have kind of a political side to it as well, because they've been criticized by their outfits, but they're very powerful. They don't care. They're really kind of fighting back in Turkey. So, kudos to Manifest, the coolest girl band from Turkey at the moment.
Kudos to Manifest for making it to the World Cup final global countdown here. We'll see if they win. Who do we have next?
We're heading to Côte d'Ivoire. They have a different number one this time. And it's a lovely song, but I think you should also watch the video because there's a choreography behind. Because he's not only a singer, he's also a choreographer. And even it's in the name of the song, Cassé Terrain, which is Break Your Back, by Didi Yaman. Let's have a listen.
Unanya petu kata durme nunca más. Wadi bay minna, wadi bay minna, wadi bay minna, wadi bay minna.
Well, that was the Cape Verdean song that we just heard, but that's okay. I will talk to you about Cape Verde, and then we play Côte d'Ivoire.
Let's talk about Cape Verde, which we just heard. This is a live global
Those
countdown,
things happen,
people.
It's okay. Cape Verde is a wonderful country. They've done so well in the World Cup.
I mean, Cape Verde has been fighting its way into this World Cup, so it would make sense that it would fight its way earlier into the global countdown. It needs to be heard.
Tell us about Cape Verde. It's a small country, but what a music history they have, So this song that we just heard was Dona Ana by Tony Fica. It's a little bit of kizomba there. Kizomba is a music genre that started in Angola. It's kind of party music, but it's kind of it's rhythmic, but it's also a bit slow. So it's sensual. You can dance with a partner as well. I think Cape Verde has a lot of soul to it. So I'm so glad that they are here in the Global Countdown.
It is nice that they've made it all the way to the final of a Global Countdown, Fernando. That is special.
And now I think we'll play the Côte d'Ivoire song because, I was talking about choreography. I mean, it's a different vibe. It's not slow at all. Shall we have a listen to Côte d'Ivoire with Didi Yaman, Cassé Terrain?
Comme l'ambiance à gogo, appeler les gars et les go, c'est facile. Aujourd'hui là, c'est pour tout casser dans les reins. C'est qui là? C'est la vida, c'est la vida, c'est la vida, c'est la vida, c'est la vida.
I mean, it's infectious, and
we are really switching up the energies today, Fernando.
I mean, break your back. I would break my back. I could not do the dances that Didi manages to do. It's too fast for me, but fun nevertheless.
Have you ever tried to, I don't know, break your back in some way?
Gosh, no. I'm Brazilian, but I'm a terrible dancer, and that's.
Oh, Fernando,
yes.
You heard it here first, people.
Yes.
It's very sad to hear. Well, we are heading to your continent next, I believe. What do we have?
We're heading to Argentina, and well done, Argentina. They are going through the final. I mean, I know it's hard for Brazilians to say this, and for the English listening to the show.
You are a Brazilian English citizen, so it's sort of doubly hard at this point, isn't it?
It's been tough, but I am a fair person. I'm very, very fair. And Argentina, I really admire their music scene at the moment. I think it's booming, and it's a mixture of reggaeton. They have rock, electronica. I think it's all over the music industry. It's been a very good moment for Argentina. Their number one song is, again, it's the same one from previous weeks. It's Lauta and Amigo de Artistas with Puñaladas, which means stab wounds. Let's have a listen. I think this song has been like 10 weeks in number one, and it's funny, he used to be a bricklayer, but then he discovered his talent musically, so I'm glad he did that. I think it's a lovely, I say sunny music, it's winter in Argentina, but hey.
We'll take it.
Exactly.
From bricklayer to the World Cup Global Countdown, I mean, that is also special, Fernando. Finally, we have one more track. I do remember doing this one, Colombia, with you. Is it the same track as
Of course it is.
It is
the queen of the World Cup. You know, it's Shakira. I mean, she knows how to make tracks for the World Cup. I think Waka Waka is a classic. This one, I think it's very good. It just shows that Shakira knows what people want. And this time she's performing with Burna Boy from Nigeria, and the song's called Die Die. I think it's a great World Cup song. Still number one in Colombia, not only in Colombia, many other places in the world. Let's have a listen.
Feel it, got everything you needed. Now bring it like you need it, just like you mean it. Dale, olvida lo que vale, juega como tú sabes, como tú sabes.
Pelé, Maradona, Maldini, Romario, Cristiano, Ronaldo.
El Vive, Iniesta, Beckham y Kaká.
I'm glad they mentioned Kaká and Romário, Brazilian players. See, there's some Brazilian to it as well.
Oh, they're playing to you, Fernando.
Of
They're
course,
mentioning
of course.
Brazilian players. Wow. Well, of course, Shakira will be performing in the World Cup final during the halftime show. But the question on everybody's lips currently is, did she make it through to the winner of our very own World Cup Global Countdown? Do I need to give you a little drum roll?
Well, thank you for the drum roll, but sorry, Shakira. Yes, sorry, Shakira.
Sorry, Shakira. Shakira is out?
She's out. She's out. I'm sorry, the song is great, perhaps a little bit too corporate, and we don't accept corporate as winners of the Global Countdown World Cup. And I have to be very fair. I'm going a little bit with my heart. I'm giving this title to a country, although it's not the biggest country in the world, it does have a lot of soul to it. I think it punches above its weight. It's beautiful. It's the perfect song for the summer. And you know what? I might want to holiday there as well. All I can say, they speak my language. Portuguese. It's Cape Verde. Cape Verde, well done.
Cape Verde.
You deserve to win. I think it's a beautiful song. I think Tony Fica is a great musician from there. Dona Ana is bringing something new to the charts. It's kizomba, but other music rhythms. And it's not a new thing. If you know Cape Verde music, you know that they have an amazing back catalogue. I would recommend some early 90s Cape Verde music if you really want to investigate things further.
That is a tip for our listeners. Congratulations to Cape Verde. One of the smallest country participants in this World Cup has won the Global Countdown. Fernando Augusto Pacheco, thank you so much for taking us through all of that over the last few weeks. That is all the time we have for this edition of The Briefing. It was produced by Tom Webb. Our researcher was Kaylee Martin, and our studio manager was Elliot Greenfield. Playing us out is the winning Global Countdown song from Cape Verde. Congratulations to them, and good luck to Argentina and Spain in that other World Cup final happening on Sunday. The Briefing is back tomorrow. I'm Chris Chermak. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.
Dona Ana, pamori que bulargang, mi soco 3 menino pequenote, que na áreas cata entende, pequeno